different. Lots and lots of good stuff there. Very kind of rhythmic looking swing.
Yeah. The misses with the shorter ones, clubs go probably more left, probably a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. And the longer the club gets, the more the miss tends to be on the right.
Got you.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with the trajectory.
Yep. I mean, if you look at the averages on the TrackMan here, you've basically got.
Oh, this is the average, is it? This bottom?
Yeah, this is like this very bottom number, which is actually pretty close to that last swing, to be fair.
Yeah.
You hit down on the ball like -5.
Yep.
You swing a little left and the path's slightly to the right. It's actually a really good draw number.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if we just looked at the swing shape, there's really nothing about the swing shape that you would change. Okay. Now, it doesn't detach from the fact that you still kind of miss-hit.
Yeah.
If you look at the dispersion, that center line, it's actually, I mean, there's a very, very slight bias to the right, but you could also argue that you've got, as many misses left as you have to the right. Yeah. But the majority of your shots actually are in a pretty good channel. Okay. So there's lots of good stuff there. I mean, you could even argue there that your bigger misses are to the left.
Yeah. On an average round, I feel probably twice or 3 times around, I can feel at the top of my swing, it just kind of collapse.
Yep. I can definitely see some of that in there.
Yeah.
Definitely see some of that. How old are you again?
49.
Okay, so we're pretty much in the same age bracket in that sense. No doubt as you get older, you don't move. I mean, we all don't move as well. And, if I was to kind of describe your swing, I would say in this early phase, I feel like you get things moving pretty nicely.
Okay.
So we'll say that's about halfway back. I'm going to say pretty nicely. I would say your upper body, it's turning quite well. Mm-hmm. You have, lower body's pretty passive there. Okay. As you get kind of in the second part, I would say it tends to be a little more on the armsy side of things.
Yes.
And I would just describe that as you tend to sort of load the wrists, and you tend to maybe fold the arms more than you move your body.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I would describe that.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. Now, positionally, everything's good. Okay. I mean, there's no issues there. I wouldn't say that your face at all gets open at that point. Yeah. There's nothing open about the face. Okay. But what tends to happen is because you're maybe underusing your body, you tend to get a lot of your whip and your speed from the wrists and the hands, which is where you feel a little bit of this maybe loading. Yeah. So what happens when you get a lot of lag in here at the bottom? Which half my students think this is the holy grail, or they're looking for this, and it's not necessarily it's a bad thing. There's lots of good players, but when you've got, let's just say, a really sharp angle late in the downswing, you've got this kind of really sharp angle. The only way you can get rid of that is to kind of stop the body, and dump the club out.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So what you'll see here is there's a real if you look at your right arm there, it kind of gets really straight.
Okay.
Yeah. It kind of thrusts out, and everything just kind of stalls there. Yeah. And to be fair, it kind of has to.
Okay.
Because you've got so much of this kind of activity going on at the bottom.
Yep. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
So the good thing is, swing shape wise, is nothing really that I would do to change that pattern. Okay. I mean, if every golfer came to me that wanted to hit a draw, I would say they're the numbers. Okay. But sometimes with TrackMan, it's not just about sometimes looking at, the overall, let's say, look of the swing or the blueprint of the swing. It's not just about numbers, it's how you move and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So what I'm kind of thinking about here is, with regards to this second part, it's kind of how do I take this nice structure you have, let's just call, this look here, a nice, I'd say there's some width to that arc. It's around 90 degrees. Yep. And kind of get you to move, let's say, this lower and upper body in the second phase of the backswing to maintain some of that width throughout. and to reduce some of like the loading.
Yeah. Okay.
I do feel like with you, if I could give you a little more width and space going to the top, which would just require us to release the hips a little bit more, meaning like we'd add a little bit more hip turn, which would then allow us to kind of open up the chest a little bit more.
Okay.
Then see what that kind of does for the downswing.
Yeah.
You may always load this thing.
I think I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah. I mean, as a kid, I've always kind of felt that.
Yeah. Absolutely on the way down, I'd love to see the downswing arc as wide as the backswing arc.
Okay.
My intuition says to me, I feel like I could do that manually with you.
Yeah.
Like and just give you like a downswing feel.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I could create a little bit more space on the way back, that is definitely going to help us on the way down. That to me is pretty, you know, and it might require some feels to get there.
Okay.
I also feel potentially as well, if I can get you to move this a little bit better on the way back, there is potential like speed in there as well as you get into like there's, and when I say potential speed, like you might feel like, oh, like I can go at this a little bit more. If you go fast right now, you're in trouble. It's just going to go more right because you're going to, if I tell you to turn through, this is going to be later and you're going to actually just hit it worse, I think. So, so yeah, let's kind of work on that first. We maybe just do a little bit of mirror work. And then, and then we'll hit some shots doing that. Yeah. I want you to go back to halfway in the backswing, just basically where you've been. Yeah. And as maybe a little bit of a feel, we're going to feel like the club's sort of somewhere there halfway back. Yeah. And you can probably also see yourself in the mirror like behind you. Yeah. Now, what we want to kind of feel from here is we want to kind of wind this part of the backswing up to complete it. So we'll do this kind of slowly. Yeah. Good, stop there. Now you should definitely feel some more activity in the lower body.
Yes.
You should definitely feel like this is a lot more cranked, but you don't feel like your arms have really done much, or
They've only gone actually.
let's say your right arm and the wrist haven't continued to load. Yeah.
So,
And just kind of winding up sort of this part here, which kind of gets this back. Yeah. What's that feel like compared to where you usually are?
a lot more strain in the like wind up here.
Okay.
Obviously much shorter, or much less arm swing.
Good.
So that would be the end of the,
It is.
end of the swing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what we have to look at, if we can start to hit balls that way, is see, does that affect like how you load the downswing?
Okay.
Like in other words, if that gives us even, I think 20% more width on the downswing, you know, not as narrow, you'll find you can go through it a lot more easily and you won't have to like kind of wait here and then kind of stall it out. Yeah.
So the way to practice like would be in a mirror? I guess
Yes. Yeah, that. And just feel like you're kind of winding up this kind of rib cage here, this section here. Basically exactly like what you're doing. That looks great there. Yeah. I mean, positionally, you know, if I was to move you, that's where I'd want to see you. Yeah. So just do that again. And I'll just video one of those for you. Put that into your, very good. And again from the start. And then swing through. Nice. Different? Do two swings for me. Do one where you go halfway back and you pause and you kind of slowly crank it and hit it, and then do something like the last one.
That's complete.
Complete. Maybe just take out 50%.
Okay.
So you might feel like you wind it up kind of like at this speed when you do a continuous one.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to film both of those and show you. Nice. Yeah, that's a great rehearsal. Really good. And this is more continuous. Yep.
I'll do it again, just to rehearsal first.
Yep. Okay.
much better through. I can get my chest through the ball. It feels like.
Right. Okay. So again, I'll come. Yeah, again, when you've got more space, that will definitely give you more emphasis to go through.
Okay.
Yeah. As I said, it's a little bit tricky with you when you're talking about the ball going right in club face because I really don't think positionally, positionally it's actually really good.
Okay.
Like from down the line here, just looking at where the club face.
Okay.
You know, if you came to me for 10 lessons and I worked on the position, I don't think I would get it better.
Okay.
Okay. So it's kind of like a compliment, you know. Okay. Which means that, you know, it's looking more at what's going on from the face-on view, and we could even say like the dynamics of how like you're moving. Yeah. And that would be on the way back, which then obviously is going to complement potentially what happens on the way through. So I mentioned this is your practice swing first. So I mentioned
this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, on the right screen. Left one's the original one. Yeah. So the video, which I'll kind of redo and show you before, I'll send you later, kind of just shows what I mentioned, which is like kind of halfway back here. Yeah. It's really just more of like an arm kind of lift or fold. Yeah. And there's not much really happening from here. And so that kind of really restricts like the upper body and just the overall like turn. Yeah. You know, from here you're continuing to, I'll just say, you know, use this, so this kind of rib cage. You could even say just like your whole hip section to kind of pull back. So you start to see a real difference there in your upper body. Things that kind of stand out to me, kind of this, and that's almost in the same line as your head. Versus like that.
Reverse?
Definitely not. Okay. No, as you start to turn more, you will start to see your right shoulder. Okay. But I wouldn't say that's, you know, a reverse at all. Yep. To me, reverse is where you'll get the upper body tipping like to the left of that line. Okay. Whereas you've actually, like if you think about you turning to there, all you're doing is turning a little bit more. Yeah. So you start to see a little bit of your right shoulder or scap there. Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, that's you, actually, I'll play that. That's you doing it, hitting. Yeah. Now, what I'm interested to see is this part here, because I feel like that's, that's where it's going to reduce the, basically those thin shots. I feel like this is exactly where like your thin shots come from. So now you've got, you know, much wider arc coming down, purely because of that backswing. You know, there's a good like 20 degrees difference there. Yeah. And that's a lot that you can play with at the bottom. Yep. Yeah. And you can see in here, it's way wider.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty nice actually. You can kind of see how there is a little bit better, a little bit less dip. Yeah. But again, some of that is a reaction. Okay. I wouldn't say some of it. All of it's a reaction to what's happening on the downswing there. So I feel like as you get more comfortable with that, you can maybe start to feel like you can go a little bit more aggressive, like through the ball. Okay. How was that contact?
Very good.
Yeah.